Let's pivot and talk a little Cavaliers here,
Super
guys.
heavyweight, 240.
Tyvus flexing on him because he pushed the
240.
chair
Come
off
on
the
now.
shot.
240. Y'all better stop playing with me.
Tyvus is a former professional athlete.
Come on now.
In the NFL, like
And he
should be strong. Like Tyvus,
Y'all need to cut it
I'm
out.
very proud of you, very proud
Y'all
of you.
such haters, man.
No, I'm proud of you.
Shoot
You still
me
push a
down.
chair.
You know what? They build you up to shoot you down.
It's
We
what
should
it is.
we should definitely get Jason's book. We need to move this
We
ball
can
out the
frame
way
Jason's book,
and put
yeah.
the book right here in the middle.
Ain't nobody buy it.
I'll buy it. You want me? Is it still for sale?
Probably could buy it for $2 on Amazon.
What's the
It
name
was a
of
good
it?
book.
What's the name of it?
Didn't read it.
If you wrote it, I'm sure it was a good book. That is true, I didn't read it. But if you wrote it, I'm sure it was fantastic.
What's the name of it, Jason? I'm gonna look it
It's
up.
called The Blueprint,
The Blueprint.
a name Jason loves.
I hated that name. I did not want it called that.
We could get into overtime one day. We get into the ins and outs of your
process.
book deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But let's talk a little Cavs here, guys. Evan Mobley and the Cavs are in negotiations for what we expect to be a rookie max extension. That has been reported upon earlier this summer that they are in talks. There has been no finalization on that. But from the 2021 draft class, 3 players have already signed their rookie max extensions: Cade Cunningham, Scottie Barnes, and Franz Wagner. Now, to give everyone a little context on what the rookie max is 25% of the salary cap, which, if the salary cap doesn't move, which it will, gives you about $220 million. If you reach a certain criteria, it gets bumped up to 30% of the salary cap. And that criteria is if you win an MVP, if you win Defensive Player of the Year, or if you make an All-NBA team. You can go from about $220 million to upwards of $270 million. And that's why Tyrese Halliburton played through injury last season, because he was eligible for the max and he wanted to lock himself into the 30% of the cap. So the question is, let's assume for the sake of this discussion, Evan signs the rookie max. Mm-hmm. Can he reach any of those criteria during his deal?
He ain't getting the first.
To then
he ain't getting the first.
get
two.
up to 30%.
He ain't getting the first 2.
So you say no to MVP, no to DPOY.
Not with DPOY. Not as long as Victor Wembanyama is in the NBA, it ain't happening. So those 2 is not gonna happen. But the All NBA team, you could talk me into it, depending on what we get. Like he would literally have to be what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where he defines that offensive game. He's hitting shots from 3. Maybe he's facilitating a little bit in this Kenny Atkinson offense. You know, maybe a little bit of what Draymond was doing. If he's doing stuff like that and still really playing at a high level defensively, I feel like he can make that push. Now, where it's hard is it's not point guards, shooting guards.
It's positionless now.
Exactly. That is what makes it hard. But for him to make it, he has to play sort of a positionless style on the court, which would involve him facilitating and shooting more shots.
I actually think he could win DPOY before All-NBA, because there is such a thing, and I've seen it.
That they get tired of giving it to the same
It's
person.
voter fatigue.
I know. Gobert has 4 now.
Yeah, he's very fatigued.
And Wemby's going to get his, for sure. But Evan Mobley's he's an elite defender.
He is.
And I do think it's not quite as, like with MVP, it very much sometimes becomes a career achievement award. Well, you haven't won it yet, so here's the year that you get to get it. LeBron should have more than 4 MVP awards. It's insane that LeBron James only has 4 MVP awards. But that's neither here nor there. But the point is, I do think eventually Evan will get a DPOY. Now, it will happen over the course of this I don't know. But I think he's actually got better odds. And you're right, Wemby is a game changer. Mm-hmm. I still think he has better odds of winning DPOY over making an All-NBA team right now. A year from now, I may have a different answer to that.
I disagree. It's funny, you took almost my exact notes on this topic. Like almost word for word my exact
That's because
notes.
I'm an NBA insider.
As an MVP candidate, I can't see it happening.
No.
Listen, to win MVP over the course of this next contract, he'd have to surpass guys who are also young and about to be in their prime, like Luka and SGA and Ant Edwards, and guys who can just put up monstrous numbers from a position that, not saying Mobley can't, but he doesn't have the ball enough and won't ever have the ball enough to put up those gigantuan numbers. From a defensive standpoint, DPOY, if Wemby's healthy, I think there's a chance he can win 8 of the next 10. Now, could Mobley win one of the 2 that he doesn't win? Certainly. Yeah, he finished second already. He's an all first-team defensive player and caliber player at this moment. I think he'll get even better. I think his best skill set defensively is a free safety roamer with the real rim protector, kind of like Giannis and Brook Lopez, which would make me believe the Cavs, that's part of the reason they want to keep Jared Allen. They don't want to make him a traditional only rim protector. So he could win Defensive Player of the Year. I just wouldn't bet on anyone but Wemby winning it for the next decade. So I think that's tough. In terms of making an all-NBA team, Jason, I put the chance at 33% he makes an all-NBA team over the next 5 years, which some people may say that's way too high, and some people may say that's way too low. But could he become a top 15 player over the course of his next contract? If he takes a slight improvement from an offensive standpoint, and not a slight, if he takes a legitimate improvement from an offensive standpoint and increases his points per game from, I don't know, let's say 16, where he was this year is 15.7, to 23 points a game.
Ooh.
Becomes a little bit of a better rebounder. That goes up to 11, 12. Because he's a focal point of the offense and being used in a different capacity, his assist numbers can go from 2.5 to 4.5. He's still always going to average a block and a half to 2 blocks per game. He's still going to have a steal per game. If he's shooting 37, 38% from 3 on volume, not on 1 attempt per game, but on real volume, I do think that puts him in the conversation of a top 15 guy over the course of a season in the league, because it's not, are you one of the top 15 players in basketball? It's, are you one of the top 15 players in basketball who qualified for the year that award? So you only have to be a top 25 player, just be one of the top 15 that year. 1 in 30 chances, I don't think it's outrageous. I think that's pretty fair.
No, I guess it's not outrageous. I just, and if he puts up those numbers, yes. But if you're playing alongside 2 ball-dominant guards, I'm not sure that you're going to get those touches. And that's part of what I'm curious to see how this offense looks under Kenny Atkinson. The way that Kenny described Evan's role is far different than what we've seen in terms of putting the ball in his hands and almost making him like a hub that the offense is going to run through.
Is how we described it.
Yeah, and I don't. I mean, Draymond was able to do it with Steph Curry out there, but Klay Thompson is more of a shooter. I don't know that I would consider him a ball-dominant guard in the traditional sense.
He's the least ball-dominant player that scores. The game he scored 60, he took 11 dribbles.
Yeah, so the beauty of the Warriors was multiple guys who could dribble, pass, and shoot, and Draymond was a huge piece of that. I just don't know the way that – I mean, for Evan to play the way that Kenny has described, Donovan and Darius have to drastically change the way that they play because you can't do all 3 of those. So I'll go back to I just looked up the Defensive Player of the Year list. I mean, Rudy won it in 24, but Jaren Jackson won it in 23, Marcus Smart in 22, Giannis in 20. So while Rudy has 4, there is still some mix in there. I still think the best path for Evan is the Defensive Player of the Year. But could he get – I mean, how many times has Donovan made an All-NBA team? We just looked at
one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. He would have made it this year, but he didn't qualify games.
So it's hard, man. It's really hard to make those lists.
But you think the DPOY is more makeable?
I actually think there's a better path for him to get there than there is to get to the All-NBA teams.
Yeah, 1 All-NBA team for Donovan, which was his first season in Cleveland.
Now, the way that Kenny Atkinson described it, let's see if they're able to pull that off. But it's going to impact the way Donovan and Darius are playing as well, because you can't run through things through Evan. I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but they can't have the ball in their hands as much.
Well,
Darius and Donovan can't.
Well, Evan,
go ahead.
Even if Kenny Atkinson uses Evan like Draymond, they didn't run everything through Draymond. It's just certain possessions that all of a sudden Evan's the focal point and the creator. And you could run a lot of stuff. And Golden State used to run this gaggle play, which if you listen to was LeBron and JJ's podcast.
Mind the game.
It was like the second or third episode they ever did. They were talking about the most JJ asked LeBron, what's the most unguardable set in basketball? And they both agreed that it was this gaggle set, and I don't really know why it's called a gaggle set, and I couldn't explain to you what the actual action is, but it was this gaggle set where they entered the ball to Draymond in the post. Klay and Steph were here, and there was a back screen, and it was a complete read situation. Steph had one read, Klay had another read. They could come off a high back screen from Kevon Looney. They could cut off the ball. They could switch, and it just put the defense in a complete, we don't know what we're going to do, so you can't prepare for it, and every time we do it, it's going to be different. And LeBron said it was literally unguardable because Steph and Klay were such good shooters, you couldn't help and change anything.
That's it.
Well,
and that's the added bonus that we'll see if Donovan and Darius can recreate. They're not nearly the shooters Steph and Klay were, but if you put Evan as the fulcrum in that kind of offensive scheme for a couple plays a game, can Darius and Donovan become 60% as effective as Steph and Clay were there? And if they can, it's not crazy to think that Mobley's assist number can jump from 2.5 to 5 almost ASAP. And if he's in there and is more of a passer, that opens up more of his scoring game on the backside.
I actually would like to see that because
I can find the play.
Here we are talking about, for the past couple of years, we were like, how is it going to work? You got two ball-dominant guards that's used to having the ball in their hand.
Ask Kevin Love what it's like to play with two ball-dominant guards.
I think
it's tough. It's tough.
I think that the best thing to do is take the ball out of both of them, give it to somebody else, and make both of them be off ball, because I think both of them can be effective off the ball, and it'll take that component out of their minds. You know, we've been talking for Darius, it would be perfect because he's been for the past 2 years having to play this role where he don't have the ball and trying to figure it out. Well, if you add some cuts to it and they're finding him open and now he's backdooring and he can shoot, he's been preparing for that for the past 2 years anyway.
Longer than that. Go back to the time with Colin Sexton. It was the same thing.
I guess you got a point there.
He's
been preparing for this moment anyways. The difference is the guys that had the ball weren't really looking to pass as much. Now, Donovan got better last year when he had to. When Darius was out of lineup, he became the point guard. But for the most part, those two ain't – well, Donovan especially wasn't really looking to pass the ball or do that much facilitating. So it'll be interesting to see if Evan did do it, because Donovan is good either way. I think he's good with the ball and without the ball. It would be really interesting to see how it will work out if Evan was to be the guy with the ball and have to make the reads.
And I think he's capable of it.
I think he is too.
My biggest knock on the JB regime was never giving him the chance to flourish as a playmaker. And you saw, and we talked about it from different examples, Jason. And I go back to Game 5 when Jared Allen went out and they ran that little back screen slip play with Marcus Morris in the corner that gave the extra spacing, and Darius cut back door, and Mobley had a great pass. We saw it against Boston. I think right now, today, his best offensive skill set is his facilitating. Now, he's not a great ball handler yet. He needs to improve on that. But in terms of seeing the defense, reading the defense, and making the requisite pass to get someone open, I think he's pretty advanced at that for a guy who's only 22 years old. And the Cavs over the last couple of years never took advantage of that skill set in a way I thought they should have. And at least from talking to Atkinson and hearing his intro press conference, sitting down with him one-on-one for a sec, that was a focal point he was clearly projecting on everybody. This is what we need and expect from Evan Mobley. And to see him take a jump, maybe not necessarily from a scoring standpoint, like I think that'll come next, but at least from a playmaking standpoint, I expect us to come back and have a couple of shows where we're like, damn, did you see Evan Mobley make some of those passes? And I'm going to sit right here and tell you, I told y'all so. It wasn't because he couldn't do it. It's because the Cavs didn't allow him to do it last year. It's always been in there.
I hate that. Why would you not allow somebody to utilize their skill set on a team where your offense is struggling anyways?
Jason, I'll let you. You want that grenade?
Do you want that grenade?
Not really, no. We've had the Evan discussion for 2 years where Mike and I have both said that I thought there's opportunities to make him more comfortable in the offense. Where are you comfortable? Go there. Go there and wait, because the ball's coming to you on this possession, coming down the floor. And I agree. And I talked to Kevin about it when Kevin was here. And Kevin sort of felt the same way, that there were opportunities to get Evan more comfortable. And Kevin, it's important to remember, Kevin lived through that. Kevin was the star on a team going nowhere and came here as the third wheel behind two ball-dominant players and had to sort of take what they would give him. And it's a helpless role to be in when you are relying on someone else giving you the ball, which he never had earlier in his career. But you can only do with what you have. And when Ty came in, Ty very much made it a point of telling them, you get him the ball, he goes first. You guys can get yours whenever you want. Kevin goes first. And I think Kenny started to, it sounded like to me at the introductory press conference, started to lay the groundwork for the exact same. Ty was much more blunt and mean in the way that he did it, but it was but he was also dealing with different personalities than LeBron and Kyrie.
I asked him straight up.
It was very effective.
When we sat down one-on-one, I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're describing Draymond and how you want to use Evan. He goes, I'm glad someone picked up on that, because that is pretty much the vision, at least at least facets of it, maybe not exactly.
And
the
that's the
same.
experience he's coming from.
Yeah.
That's obviously with Golden
And
State.
Draymond, didn't he call Draymond, or Draymond called some players and was talking about Kenny?
Kenny said when he got the job, Draymond called him and talked about Evan Mobley
that's
and raved him
okay.
up immediately.
Okay.
And do you have that Gaggle play I sent? I sent you guys two tweets of the Gaggle play. You guys sleeping back there.
Sleeping on the job.
It's this new system. I don't like this new social news desk system. Tagboard was so much better. So much better. We'll move on in one sec. But back to the can he reach the max? What percentage would you give Evan Mobley of hitting any of those three criteria over the next 5 years? DPOY, MVP,
0
All-NBA.
MVP.
Just any of the three. You can combine them.
Oh, overall.
I'm going to give him 50.
I'm gonna give
Like
him.
50?
I'm gonna give him 35.
I'll give him 50.
I was right in the middle. I'm at about 40%.
35.
I think there's a pretty good chance that he could do that. All NBA is a hell of a lofty goal, but he's young enough with some of these other guys falling off, and not necessarily falling off, but LeBron can't be still playing in 6 years, and Kawhi, and like Giannis will be on the back end of his peak at that point.
Whoa.
He will be. It's the truth.
There will be no fall off.
You know, I'm sitting here talking myself out of what I said now because as I think about it, the one thing with Kenny very much is probably more offensive minded than defensive minded, and I just wonder,
will his defense go down a little
well,
bit?
just the entire slippage of the team. There's going to be a little bit of slippage.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just inevitable.
Especially because he wants to play fast. That's part of playing fast.
And I wonder now if that will hurt some of the defensive metrics and some of his defensive opportunities because they're going to play. JB was such a defensive-minded coach, and everything was funneled to the big men and making sort of Jared and Evan the stars defensively.
Yeah.
We just don't know what it's going to look like now.
I said something yesterday I want to clarify, by the way, and then we'll move on to the Browns. But we're talking about Kenny Atkinson assembling his staff, and they hired another new coach, Hendrick, yesterday from the Nets. He was his video coordinator. And Kenny said it at his intro press conference that, one of his things he's been working on is his relationship with star players, right? And he got a bad knock on him coming out of Brooklyn because KD and Kyrie and him didn't see eye to eye, and they eventually pushed him out. So he got the knack as not being a player's coach per se. Like, let's be honest. Has Kyrie and KD ever liked a coach ever? Like, should we really hold that against Kenny? I'm making a joke, making a joke, but also being serious.
That's fair.
Should we hold it against Kenny that KD and Kyrie didn't see eye to eye with him when they literally have not seen eye to eye with essentially any coach they've ever played for ever? And should that be a black mark on his resume? Or is that just kind of the reality of coaching those two players?
Are they the only two players that had that problem?
Well, they're the two that got him fired.
Well, then it's not fair to say that then because
you know what I mean? 'Cause
I feel like they didn't say nothing bad about him from Golden State. They praised him since he's gone, right?
From all reports, he had a great relationship with Steph and Draymond.
So, yeah.
And I do think that we've said it 100 times with the Browns. When you go through something once, you learn from it. And I'm sure going through, yes, you have to treat star players differently. That's just the reality of it. They get different treatment than the 13th and 14th guy on the roster. And having gone through that experience once, he'll be better for it now. And especially with the star power at Golden State and seeing the way that Steve Kerr operated with those guys. And now coming here, obviously he has the blessing of Donovan. So he's already off to a good start.
Does AJ get special treatment?
Who?
Your son.
Oh, no, I don't give any of my kids special treatment.
I was just asking.
I treat them differently.
Okay. Are
You
you coaching him, right? Are
No,
you the
not
coach?
anymore.
Is
No.
his
I used to be.
is his coach give him special treatment?
No. AJ, no.
Okay.
Ty, real quick, we mentioned that Gaggle play earlier. Ant has. You want to see the
Yeah,
Gaggle
let me
real
see
quick?
it. I want to see what it looks like.
Imagine Evan Mobley as the fulcrum here. This is the end of it. Hold on, it's
Okay, I was
going
about
to
to say,
restart.
I'm looking for Draymond.
It's actually, one of these is Kevon Looney, but in the corner with the ball, that's Evan. And then it's this little read and react action from Donovan and Darius. And you have to pick and choose who you guard and where. And with the floor spaced as much as it is, it's just an absolute nightmare to try and defend.
So where would
Evan has the ball right here.
Where is Looney at in this? That's what.
Well, that's Kuminga in this. Well, Looney has the ball in the corner.
Okay,
I can't
so
see that far. My
I
eyes are
can't
terrible.
either.
Draymond's not in on this play. Looney's
So
the
this
fulcrum.
is Looney and Kuminga as the 4 and the 5. I mean, the 4 to 5.
Yeah, so Looney has the ball here. That'd be Mobley.
So where would Allen be?
Setting the screen there that now Steph is coming off and then Chris Paul. Or
but he
whoever that
can't
is
shoot
fades.
though. So if he stepped back to where Chris Paul is, they're not gonna step out on him.
Who? Chris Paul can't shoot?
No, I'm talking about if ain't that Chris Paul setting the pick?
I honestly can't tell who's setting a screen.
That's Chris Paul setting the screen for Steph, and then they threw it to Chris Paul at the top. So if you telling me that's Jared Allen, I'm not stepping up to that.
No, Jared Allen's the one cutting through.
Cutting through. Let's see. Okay, so he's Kuminga.
So he's Kuminga. Look, Kuminga goes through, hits a screen.
Okay,
and
I
then
got you. Now
Chris Paul screens for Steph.
I
and then
got
they swing
you.
it around. And there's a second one. If you go to the next one, it's the same action. Next one won't work. All right, social news desk, you could go. You want to take a read? I'll shut my mouth before I say something I shouldn't.